The morning sun broke through the clouds over Windsor, casting golden rays across the castle grounds. Inside the private residence, Catherine stood by the tall windows, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. She watched the gardens below, where gardeners were already tending to the roses she loved so much. Her mind was elsewhere, though. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions that she had tried desperately to keep hidden from the world. William entered the room quietly, his footsteps soft against the carpet. He noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself so carefully as if one wrong move might shatter her composure. He had seen this before, during the most difficult moments of their lives together. But this time felt different. This time there was something in the air that made his chest tighten with worry. "You didn't sleep well again," he said gently, coming to stand beside her. It wasn't a question. He knew her too well after all these years of marriage. Catherine turned to look at him, and for a brief moment, her carefully maintained facade slipped. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of warmth, carried a weight that made William's heart ache. She managed a small smile, the kind she had perfected for public appearances, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice steady. "Just thinking about the schedule for today. There's so much to do." William studied her face, knowing there was more she wasn't saying. They had built their relationship on honesty and trust, but he also understood that sometimes she needed space to process her thoughts before sharing them. He reached out and gently took the teacup from her hands, setting it on the nearby table. Then he took both her hands in his, feeling how cold they were despite the warm tea she had been holding. "Kate," he said, using the name he called her in their most private moments. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" She looked down at their joined hands, her throat working as she swallowed hard. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily, marking the seconds of silence between them. Outside, birds sang their morning songs, oblivious to the heavy moment unfolding inside. "I received a call yesterday," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, "from the doctor's office. They want me to come in for additional tests." William felt his world tilt slightly. He had known something was wrong, had sensed it in the way she had been quieter than usual, in how she sometimes touched her side when she thought no one was looking. But hearing the words spoken aloud made it terrifyingly real. "When?" he asked, keeping his voice calm even though his mind was racing with worry. "Next week. They found something in the last scan that they want to investigate further." Catherine's voice remained steady, but William could feel the slight tremor in her hands. "I didn't want to worry you until I knew more, but I can't keep it from you anymore." William pulled her into his arms, holding her close against his chest. He could feel her heart beating rapidly, could sense the fear she was trying so hard to hide. For years, they had faced the scrutiny of the world together, had weathered storms that would have broken lesser relationships. But this was different. This was about her health, her life, and the thought of anything happening to her made him feel helpless in a way he had never experienced before. "We'll face this together," he murmured into her hair. "Whatever it is, we'll get through it. You're not alone in this." Catherine allowed herself to lean into him, to draw strength from his presence. She had always been the strong one in public, the one who smiled through difficulties and carried herself with grace under pressure. But here, in the privacy of their home with the man she loved more than anything, she could let her guard down. "I'm scared, William," she admitted, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "I'm terrified of what they might find. I keep thinking about the children, about everything we still want to do together. I'm not ready for any of this." William tightened his embrace, his own eyes stinging with unshed tears. He thought about their 3 children, about the life they had built together, about all the moments still waiting for them in the future. The thought of losing her was unbearable, something he couldn't allow himself to fully contemplate. "You're the strongest person I know," he told her, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. "You've faced countless challenges with courage and grace. This will be no different, and I'll be right there beside you every single step of the way." She nodded, managing a more genuine smile this time. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," William promised, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We're in this together always." They stood there by the window, holding each other as the morning light grew stronger around them. In that moment, nothing else mattered except the two of them and the love they shared. The world outside could wait. The responsibilities and duties that came with their roles could be pushed aside for just a little while longer. Catherine pulled back slightly, wiping at her eyes. We should probably start getting ready. We have that charity event this afternoon. We can cancel, William said immediately. No one would expect you to. No, Catherine interrupted gently but firmly. I need to keep going to maintain some sense of normalcy. If I stop now, if I give in to the fear, it will consume me. I need to keep doing what we do, at least until we know more. William understood. He had learned long ago that Catherine drew strength from her work, from the causes she championed and the people she helped. It was one of the many things he admired about her. Even in the face of personal crisis, she thought of others. All right, he agreed. But if at any point you need to leave, if it becomes too much, just give me the signal and we'll go. No explanations needed. She squeezed his hand gratefully. They had developed their own silent language over the years, small gestures and looks that spoke volumes without words. It was how they had survived the constant public attention, how they had maintained their connection even in crowds of thousands. As they prepared to face the day ahead, both of them carried the weight of the unknown future, but they also carried something stronger, the certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. Their love had weathered many storms already, and this would be no different. The day stretched ahead of them filled with smiles for cameras and handshakes with strangers. But beneath it all, there was an undercurrent of fear and uncertainty. Still, as William watched Catherine prepare herself, putting on her public persona like armor, he felt a surge of pride. She was remarkable, his Kate, and he would move heaven and earth to protect her. The charity event was held at a historic building in central London, its grand ballroom filled with dignitaries, philanthropists, and supporters of children's mental health initiatives. Catherine had chosen an elegant blue dress that morning, knowing the color photographed well and represented calmness and trust. As their car pulled up to the entrance, she could see the crowds gathered behind barriers, phones raised to capture their arrival. William gave her hand one last reassuring squeeze before the door opened. The moment they stepped out, the roar of the crowd washed over them. Catherine's smile was instant and genuine looking, years of practice making it second nature. She waved to the people calling her name, stopped to accept flowers from a young girl whose face lit up with joy at the interaction, but William noticed what others couldn't see. He saw the slight hesitation in her step, the way her hand briefly touched her side before she caught herself. He saw the extra effort it took for her to bend down to speak with children in the crowd, and it made his protective instincts surge forward with fierce intensity. Inside the venue, they were immediately surrounded by organizers and officials wanting to greet them. Catherine handled each interaction with her characteristic warmth and interest, asking thoughtful questions and listening intently to responses. She had always had this gift, William thought, this ability to make everyone she spoke with feel like the most important person in the room. During the reception, a woman approached Catherine with tears in her eyes. She explained how the mental health programs they supported had helped her teenage son through a crisis. Catherine listened, holding the woman's hands, offering words of encouragement and hope. William watched from a short distance, his heart swelling with love and admiration for his wife, even as worry gnawed at him. "She's incredible, isn't she?" said a voice beside him. William turned to find Lord Harrison, one of the event's main sponsors, looking at Catherine with obvious respect. "Yes, she is," William agreed, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. "You're a lucky man, Your Royal Highness. She has a way of connecting with people that's truly rare. My granddaughter was struggling with anxiety, and after meeting the Duchess at an event last year, she found the courage to seek help. Your wife changed her life with just a few minutes of genuine kindness." William nodded, accepting the compliment on Catherine's behalf, but the words struck him deeply. How many lives had she touched? How many people had she helped? The thought that the world might lose such a force for good was unbearable. The main program began, with speeches from various organizers and beneficiaries of the charity's work. When it was Catherine's turn to speak, William watched her ascend the stage with grace. She stood at the podium, her notes before her, but he knew she wouldn't need them much. She spoke from the heart about mental health, about the importance of early intervention, about creating a society where seeking help was seen as strength, not weakness. Her voice was clear and passionate, and William could see the audience hanging on her every word. But he also noticed the subtle shifts in her posture, the way she gripped the podium just a little tighter as the speech went on. When she concluded to enthusiastic applause, he was immediately there at the steps, offering his hand to help her down. "You were wonderful," he murmured as they walked back to their seats. "I felt a bit dizzy up there for a moment," she whispered back, her smile never faltering for the cameras. "But I'm okay now." Those whispered words sent a chill through William. This wasn't just stress or exhaustion. Something was genuinely wrong, and the waiting until next week's test felt like an eternity. The event continued with a silent auction and networking opportunities. Catherine moved through the room, stopping to chat with various groups, always interested, always engaged. William stayed close, ready to intervene if she needed him. At one point, he saw her pause near a pillar, taking a deep breath when she thought no one was watching. He was at her side in seconds. "Let's take a break," he suggested quietly. "The terrace is just through those doors. Some fresh air might help." She nodded gratefully, and they made their way outside to the small terrace overlooking the city. The November air was cool but refreshing. Catherine leaned against the railing, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. "This is harder than I thought it would be," she admitted, "pretending everything is normal when inside I'm falling apart." William moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "You don't have to pretend with me, ever." "I know," she said, covering his hands with hers. "But out here with all these people counting on us, I have to be strong. They need to see that we're there for them, that we care about their causes. I can't let my personal fears get in the way of that. Your dedication is admirable, Kate, but you matter too. Your health matters. These people would understand if you needed to step back for a while." Catherine turned in his arms to face him. "Maybe eventually, but not yet. Not until we know what we're dealing with. I need to keep going to feel useful and purposeful. It's the only thing keeping me from spiraling into complete panic." The door to the terrace opened and one of their aides stepped out. "Your Royal Highnesses, they're ready for the photo opportunities with the major donors." Catherine straightened immediately, her public mask sliding back into place. But before they went back inside, William caught her hand, bringing it to his lips and kissing it gently. It was a small gesture, but one filled with all the love and support he couldn't express in words at that moment. The rest of the event passed in a blur of photographs, conversations, and ceremonial moments. William watched Catherine navigate it all with the poise she was famous for, but he could see the toll it was taking. By the time they finally said their goodbyes and made their way back to the car, exhaustion was evident in the lines around her eyes. Once inside the privacy of their vehicle, Catherine let her head fall back against the seat, her eyes closing. William reached over and took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "You did amazingly well today," he said softly. "Did I?" she asked, opening her eyes to look at him. "Because I feel like I barely held it together." "No one could tell. You were perfect, as always." She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Perfect. That's what everyone expects, isn't it? The perfect duchess, the perfect wife, the perfect mother. But what if I'm not perfect, William? What if whatever is wrong with me changes everything? Then we adapt," William said firmly. "Kate, you could never disappoint me or anyone who truly matters. You're human, and you're allowed to be scared and vulnerable. That doesn't make you any less remarkable." Tears welled up in her eyes, and this time she didn't try to hide them. "I'm so afraid of leaving you and the children. Every time I think about it, I can't breathe. They're still so young, and there's so much I want to teach them, so many moments I want to share with them." "Don't talk like that," William said, his voice thick with emotion. "We don't know anything yet. The test might show it's nothing serious. We can't assume the worst. But we can't assume the best either," Catherine countered. "I need to be realistic about this, William. I need to prepare myself for whatever is coming." The car pulled up to their residence, and they sat for a moment in silence before heading inside. The weight of the unknown future hung heavy between them, but so did their love and commitment to each other. Whatever the coming days would bring, they would face it together, just as they always had. The weekend arrived with a blanket of gray clouds that seemed to mirror the mood inside the family's private home. William had insisted on keeping their schedule clear, wanting Catherine to rest before the medical appointment that loomed over them. The children sensed something was different, though Catherine and William tried their best to maintain normalcy. Saturday morning found them all in the kitchen, a rare informal scene. Catherine was helping their youngest with breakfast while William supervised the older two as they argued playfully about whose turn it was to choose the weekend movie. These were the moments Catherine treasured most. The simple family times away from cameras and duties. Mummy, you're not eating, their daughter observed, her young face showing concern beyond her years. Catherine looked down at her untouched plate and managed to smile. I'm just not very hungry this morning, sweetheart. But I'll have some fruit in a bit. William caught her eye across the table, his expression worried. She had barely eaten anything in days, though she made sure the children never noticed. At night he would hold her as she struggled to sleep, feeling her restlessness and knowing she was wrestling with fears she wouldn't voice in daylight. After breakfast, William suggested they take a walk through the grounds. The children ran ahead, their laughter carrying back on the autumn breeze. Catherine walked beside William, their hands clasped together, both lost in their own thoughts. I've been thinking, Catherine said quietly, about what I want to say to the children if the news is bad. Kate, William started, but she gently squeezed his hand. Please let me say this, I need to. I want them to remember that I love them more than anything in this world. I want them to know that being their mother has been my greatest joy and privilege. And I want them to understand that it's okay to be sad, but they should also remember the happy times. William stopped walking, turning to face her. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. You're going to be here to tell them all of that yourself for many, many years to come. I hope so, Catherine said, reaching up to touch his cheek. But if I'm not, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll help them remember me as I really was, not some perfect version. I want them to know I made mistakes, that I wasn't always sure of myself, but that I always tried my best. I promise, William said, his voice breaking. But you're going to be here to show them yourself. I refuse to accept any other possibility. They stood there on the path, holding each other while their children's voices echoed in the distance. The ancient trees around them had witnessed centuries of history, of joy and sorrow, of life and death. Catherine felt incredibly small in that moment. Just one person in the vast sweep of time. Yet what she would leave behind mattered more than anything. That evening, after the children were in bed, Catherine sat in her private study writing letters. William found her there hours later, her desk covered with sealed envelopes, each one addressed to someone she loved. What are you doing? He asked, though he already knew. Writing to everyone who matters, she replied, not looking up. Letters they'll only read if something happens to me. I know you think I'm being morbid, but I need to do this. I need to know that if the worst happens, they'll have something from me. My own words. William pulled up a chair beside her, reading the names on the envelopes. Their children, her parents, her siblings, close friends, even some of the staff who had become like family over the years. Each envelope represented a relationship she cherished, a connection she wanted to preserve even beyond death. There's one for you, too, she said softly, sliding an envelope toward him. But I hope you never have to read it. William stared at the envelope with his name on it, written in her familiar handwriting. The sight of it made everything feel terrifyingly real. This wasn't just worry or anxiety anymore. Catherine was preparing for a possibility that he couldn't even allow himself to consider. I can't, he said, pushing it back toward her. I won't read it because I won't need to. You're going to be fine. William, please, Catherine said, her voice pleading. Take it, keep it safe. If something happens to me, I need to know you'll have my words. I've poured my heart into that letter. Everything I want you to know about how much I love you, how grateful I am for our life together. Reluctantly, William took the envelope, his hands shaking. He wanted to tear it up, to destroy this tangible acknowledgement of his worst fear. But he also understood that Catherine needed this, needed to feel like she had some control over an uncontrollable situation. I love you, he said simply, the words inadequate for everything he felt. More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. You are my heart, Kate. You always have been. She moved into his arms, and they stayed like that for a long time, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Inside, they held on to each other as if letting go might mean losing everything. Sunday passed in a strange bubble of forced normalcy. They played games with the children, watched movies together, had a family dinner. But underneath it all was the awareness that Monday was coming, bringing with it the medical appointment that could change everything. That night, as they lay in bed, Catherine couldn't sleep. William held her close, feeling her tension, knowing her mind was racing with possibilities and fears. Tell me something happy, she whispered into the darkness. Tell me about a future moment you're looking forward to. William thought for a moment, then began to speak softly. I'm looking forward to our daughter's graduation, watching her walk across that stage brilliant and confident. I'm looking forward to teaching our sons to drive, even though it will probably terrify me. I'm looking forward to becoming grandparents together, to spoiling little ones and handing them back to their exhausted parents. He felt Catherine's body shake with silent tears. I want all of that too. So much. Then we'll have it, William said firmly. All of it and more. We're going to grow old together, Kate. We're going to bore our grandchildren with stories about the old days. We're going to celebrate anniversaries until we lose count. Promise me, Catherine said, her voice small and vulnerable in the darkness. I promise, William replied, knowing he was promising something beyond his control, but needing to give her hope, needing to believe it himself. They eventually fell into restless sleep, holding each other through the night. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight they had each other, and for now that had to be enough. The love they shared was strong enough to face whatever came next, even if the path ahead was frightening and uncertain. Together they had weathered many storms, and this would be no different, they told themselves. It couldn't be different. The alternative was simply unthinkable. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Catherine woke before dawn, having barely slept at all. She lay in bed watching the sky slowly lighten through the curtains, William's arm still wrapped protectively around her. She studied his sleeping face, memorizing every detail as if seeing him for the first time. The small lines around his eyes, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the steady rise and fall of his chest. If today brought devastating news, she wanted to remember this moment of peace before everything changed. William stirred, immediately sensing her wakefulness. What time is it? He asked groggily. Early, Catherine replied softly. I couldn't sleep anymore. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Whatever happens today, we'll handle it together. The appointment wasn't until 10 o'clock, giving them time to have breakfast with the children and see them off to school. Catherine held each of them a little longer than usual during their goodbye hugs, breathing in their scents, feeling their small arms around her neck. Their innocence and trust broke her heart. They had no idea that their world might be about to shift dramatically. The drive to the private medical facility was quiet. William held Catherine's hand the entire way, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. She stared out the window, watching London pass by. Ordinary people going about their ordinary Monday mornings. Unaware that for her this day might divide her life into before and after, Dr. Sarah Mitchell greeted them with professional warmth when they arrived. She had been Catherine's physician for years and knew her well. The concern in her eyes was genuine as she led them to her office rather than an examination room. That small detail made Catherine's stomach drop. Good news was usually delivered quickly. Bad news required comfortable chairs and privacy. Thank you for coming in today, Dr. Mitchell began, settling behind her desk with a tablet in front of her. I know the wait since our phone call has been difficult. Please, Catherine said, her voice steadier than she felt. Just tell us what you found. William's hand tightened around hers, and she could feel his tension matching her own. Dr. Mitchell took a breath, her expression serious but not without compassion. The additional imaging we did showed an abnormality that we need to address. It's a mass near your pancreas. The location and characteristics suggest it could be serious, but we won't know definitively until we do a biopsy. The words hit Catherine like physical blows. Mass, pancreas, biopsy. Each word carried terrible weight. She felt William go very still beside her, his breathing shallow. How serious are we talking? William asked, his voice tight with control. Pancreatic issues can be challenging, Doctor, Mitchell said carefully, but I want to emphasize that we caught this early. The mass is small, and if it is what we suspect, we have treatment options. But I won't mislead you both. This is a serious situation that requires immediate attention and aggressive treatment. Catherine felt the room spinning slightly. Of all the possibilities she had imagined, this was among the worst. She knew enough about pancreatic cancer to understand the statistics, the survival rates, the challenges. Her mind immediately went to her children, to all the moments she might miss. What's the timeline? She heard herself ask, surprised by how calm she sounded. For the biopsy and treatment? I'd like to schedule the biopsy for this Thursday. It's an outpatient procedure, minimally invasive. We'll have results within a week. Depending on what we find, we'll develop a treatment plan immediately. That could involve surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, or a combination. William leaned forward, his face pale but determined. What are her chances? If it is cancer, what are we looking at? Dr. Mitchell met his gaze directly. That depends entirely on the biopsy results and the staging. But Catherine, you're young, you're otherwise healthy, and we've caught this early. Those factors significantly improve outcomes. I've seen patients with similar presentations do very well with treatment. She went on to explain the medical details, the procedures, the potential side effects of various treatments. Catherine listened, trying to absorb it all, but part of her mind kept drifting to her children. How would she tell them? What words could possibly prepare them for this? The consultation lasted over an hour. By the end, Catherine had a folder full of information, scheduled appointments, and a biopsy procedure marked in her calendar for Thursday morning. As they left the office, she felt numb, disconnected from her body, as if she were watching someone else live through this nightmare. They made it to the car before Catherine's composure finally cracked. She sat in the passenger seat staring straight ahead, and then the tears came. Not gentle tears, but great gasping sobs that shook her entire body. William immediately pulled her into his arms as much as the car seats would allow, holding her while she released all the fear and anguish she had been holding inside. I don't want to die, she choked out between sobs. I'm not ready. There's so much I still want to do, so many years I want with you and the children. This isn't fair. This isn't how it's supposed to be. You're not going to die, William said fiercely, his own tears streaming down his face. I won't let you. We're going to fight this with everything we have. You're going to beat this, Kate. You're the strongest person I know. They sat in the parking garage for a long time, holding each other, crying together, sharing their fear and grief. Eventually, Catherine's sobs subsided into hiccuping breaths. She pulled back, wiping her eyes, trying to compose herself. We need to tell our families, she said, her voice hoarse. Before we tell the children, we need to tell our parents, prepare them. William nodded, though the thought of those conversations was overwhelming. Today? We'll tell them today, and then we'll figure out how to tell the children together. They drove home in heavy silence, the weight of their new reality settling over them. The world looked different now, Catherine thought. The trees seemed less vibrant, the sky less bright. Everything was tinged with the shadow of her diagnosis, this unwanted thing that had invaded their lives and threatened to steal their future. Back home, they made the difficult phone calls. Catherine's mother cried on the phone, her voice breaking as she tried to be strong for her daughter. William's father was quiet, his concern evident in the long pauses between words. Each conversation was painful, each required Catherine to relive the doctor's words, to face the reality again and again. By evening, they were emotionally exhausted. The children were home from school, full of energy and stories about their day. Catherine and William had decided to wait until after the biopsy to tell them, wanting to have more concrete information first. But sitting at dinner, watching her children laugh and eat and be wonderfully, beautifully oblivious, Catherine felt her heart breaking anew. That night, after the children were asleep, Catherine and William sat together in their room, holding each other in the darkness. Neither spoke, but both were thinking the same thoughts, facing the same fears, clinging to each other as their anchor in the storm that was about to engulf their lives. The days leading up to the biopsy passed in a strange blur. Catherine went through the motions of daily life, but everything felt surreal, as if she were watching herself from outside her body. She played with the children, attended to necessary duties, smiled when required. But inside, she was counting down hours, minutes, seconds until Thursday morning. William barely left her side during those days. He canceled meetings, rearranged his schedule, and made it clear that nothing was more important than being with Catherine. At night, he held her while she tried to sleep, whispering reassurances, telling her stories about their future together, refusing to acknowledge any possibility except her complete recovery. Wednesday evening, the night before the biopsy, Catherine asked William to go for a walk with her in the garden. The November air was crisp and cold. but she wanted to feel the wind on her face, to be surrounded by life and growth. They walked in silence initially, their breath creating small clouds in the cold air. "I've been thinking about what Dr. Mitchell said," Catherine began, her arm linked through William's. "About treatment options. If the biopsy confirms cancer, the treatment is going to be brutal. Chemotherapy, possibly radiation, maybe surgery. I'll be sick weak. I might lose my hair, my energy. The children will see me deteriorate. They'll see you fighting," William corrected gently. "They'll see their mother being brave and strong, doing whatever it takes to stay with them. That's what they'll remember." Catherine stopped walking, turning to face him. In the moonlight, she could see the strain on his face, the toll these past few days had taken. He was trying so hard to be strong for her, to be optimistic, but she knew he was terrified. "William, I need you to promise me something else," she said seriously. "If the treatment isn't working, if I'm suffering and there's no hope, I need you to let me go with dignity. I don't want to cling to life if it means months of agony with no chance of recovery. Promise me you'll help me make that decision when the time comes, not force me to suffer just to have a few more weeks together." "Don't ask me to do that," William said, his voice breaking. "Don't ask me to give up on you. I can't. I won't." "I'm not asking you to give up," Catherine said, taking his face in her cold hands. "I'm asking you to love me enough to let me go if staying becomes unbearable. I need to know that you'll respect my wishes, that you'll be strong enough to do what I need even if it breaks your heart." Tears streamed down William's face, and he pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I can't lose you. I don't know how to exist in a world without you in it." "You'll exist for our children," Catherine said firmly, "because they need you and because I need to know they'll be okay. Promise me, William. Please." "I promise," he whispered finally, the words torn from somewhere deep inside him. "But it won't come to that. You're going to beat this. You have to." They stood there in the cold garden, holding each other while silent tears fell. Above them, stars glittered indifferently in the vast darkness. The world would keep turning, regardless of human suffering. Time would march forward whether they were ready or not. All they had was this moment, this embrace, this love that had sustained them through so much and would have to carry them through this greatest test. Thursday morning dawned gray and cold. Catherine woke early, her stomach in knots. She wasn't allowed to eat or drink anything before the procedure. William was already awake, watching her with worried eyes. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "No," Catherine replied honestly, "but let's go anyway." They had arranged for Catherine's mother to stay with the children, telling them only that their mother had a doctor's appointment. The children had accepted this explanation easily, used to their parents having various official obligations. Catherine hugged each of them before leaving, fighting the urge to hold on too tight to alarm them with her intensity. The medical facility was quiet when they arrived. A nurse led them to a pre-procedure room where Catherine changed into a hospital gown. She looked so small and vulnerable in the thin blue fabric, William thought, his heart aching. This strong, capable woman who carried herself with such grace and confidence looked fragile for the first time since he had known her. Dr. Mitchell came in to review the procedure one more time. "We'll be using imaging guidance to take tissue samples from the mass. You'll be under sedation so you won't feel anything. The procedure typically takes about 30 to 40 minutes. Afterwards, you'll need a few hours to recover before we can send you home." Catherine nodded, trying to focus on the doctor's words, but her mind kept wandering to worst-case scenarios. What if they found something terrible during the procedure? What if there were complications? What if this was the beginning of a long, painful decline? William was allowed to stay with her until they wheeled her into the procedure room. He held her hand, stroking her hair, trying to memorize every detail of her face just in case. The thought was morbid and he pushed it away, but it kept creeping back. "I love you," Catherine said, looking up at him with eyes that held both fear and trust. "Whatever happens, remember that. Remember how much I love you." "I love you too," William replied, his voice thick. "I'll be right here waiting for you. And when you wake up, I'll be the first face you see." The medical team arrived to take her, and William had to let go of her hand. He watched as they wheeled her away, her small form disappearing through double doors. The silence that followed was deafening. He stood there for a moment, feeling utterly helpless before making his way to the waiting room. The next 40 minutes were the longest of William's life. He paced the small room, unable to sit still, checking his watch every few seconds. He thought about their life together, all the moments they had shared, all the memories they had created. Their wedding day when she had walked down the aisle and taken his breath away. The birth of each of their children, the overwhelming love he had felt. Quiet mornings together, stolen kisses, whispered conversations in the dark. He pulled out his phone and looked at photos of Catherine with the children, her smile bright and genuine, her eyes full of life and warmth. The thought of those eyes closing forever, of that smile fading from the world, was physically painful. He put the phone away, unable to look anymore. Finally, Dr. Mitchell appeared in the doorway. William's heart leaped into his throat as he searched her face for clues about what she had found. "The procedure went well," she said, and William felt his knees weaken with relief. "Catherine is in recovery and doing fine. We were able to get good tissue samples. I'll send them to pathology immediately. We should have preliminary results by early next week. Can I see her?" William asked urgently. "Of course. Follow me." Catherine was drowsy from the sedation when William entered the recovery room, but her eyes found his immediately. He rushed to her side, taking her hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. "Hey," she murmured, her voice slightly slurred. "Did I miss anything exciting?" Despite everything, William found himself smiling at her attempt at humor. "Nothing at all."
"How do you feel?"
"Tired, sore, but okay, I think." She squeezed his hand weakly. "Is it over? Did they get what they needed?" "Yes, it's over. Dr. Mitchell said the procedure went well. Now we just wait for the results." Catherine closed her eyes, a single tear sliding down her cheek. More waiting. "I'm so tired of waiting, William. I just want to know. Even if it's bad news, I need to know what we're dealing with. Soon," William promised, wiping away her tear. "Just rest now. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." She drifted in and out of consciousness for the next hour, the sedation gradually wearing off. William never left her side, watching over her protectively. When she was finally cleared to go home, he helped her dress and supported her as they walked slowly to the car. The drive home was quiet. Catherine rested her head against the window, exhausted from the procedure and the emotional strain of the past week. William kept glancing over at her, reassuring himself that she was okay, that she was still here with him. Back home, Catherine's mother had prepared soup and tea. The children were at school, giving Catherine time to rest without them seeing her post-procedure fatigue. William helped her upstairs to their room, settling her into bed with pillows propped around her. "Stay with me," she asked as he started to leave. "Just for a little while." William climbed into bed beside her, and she immediately curled into him, seeking his warmth and comfort. "I'm scared," she whispered against his chest. "I'm so scared of what the results will say." "I know," William murmured, holding her close. "I'm scared too. But whatever they say, we'll face it together. You're not alone in this, Kate. You'll never be alone." They lay there together as afternoon light filtered through the curtains, holding each other, drawing strength from their connection. Outside, life continued its normal pace. Inside, they existed in a bubble of uncertainty, waiting for results that would shape their future, hoping against hope that somehow everything would be all right. The following days were a special kind of torture. Every time the phone rang, Catherine's heart would leap into her throat. Every email notification made her hands shake. The waiting was consuming her, eating away at her composure and strength. She tried to maintain normalcy for the children, but William could see her unraveling bit by bit. On Tuesday morning, 6 days after the biopsy, Dr. Mitchell's office called. The results were in, and they wanted Catherine and William to come in that afternoon. The formal, careful tone of the nurse's voice told them nothing, but the quick scheduling suggested urgency. Catherine stood in their bedroom trying to decide what to wear, as if her clothing choice could somehow influence the news they were about to receive. William found her there, standing frozen in front of her wardrobe, tears streaming silently down her face. "I don't want to go," she said when she saw him. If we don't hear the results, then it's not real yet. We can keep living in this space where there's still hope." William crossed the room and took her hands. "Kate, whatever Dr. Mitchell tells us today doesn't change what we already know. Something is wrong and we need to know what it is so we can fight it. Hiding from the truth won't make it go away." "I know," Catherine said, wiping her eyes. "I know you're right. I'm just so afraid. What if it's the worst possible news? What if they tell me I have months instead of years? What if everything we've dreamed about for our future is gone? Then we make the most of whatever time we have, William said firmly. But I don't believe that's what we're going to hear today. I have to believe there's still hope. Still a chance for you to beat this. I can't accept anything else. They arrived at the medical facility 30 minutes early, neither able to stay home a moment longer. They sat in the waiting room, hands clasped tightly together, barely speaking. Catherine watched other patients come and go, some looking worried, others relieved. Soon she would join one of those groups, the worried or the relieved, and her life would shift accordingly. When Dr. Mitchell finally called them into her office, Catherine felt like she was walking to her own execution. Her legs were heavy, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. William's hand on her back guided her forward, his presence the only thing keeping her from turning and running. They sat in the now familiar chairs across from Dr. Mitchell's desk. The doctor's expression was serious but not devastated, and Catherine tried to read meaning into every micro-expression, every small gesture. "Thank you for coming in so quickly," Dr. Mitchell began. "I know the wait has been difficult for you both. I wanted to go over the biopsy results with you in person." She opened a file on her tablet, and Catherine held her breath. "The biopsy confirmed that the mass is indeed cancerous," Dr. Mitchell said, and Catherine felt the world tilt. "It's a neuroendocrine tumor of the pancreas. However, and this is important, it's not the aggressive adenocarcinoma that most people associate with pancreatic cancer. Neuroendocrine tumors are much slower growing and significantly more treatable." Catherine couldn't process the words at first. Cancer? She had cancer. The word echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else. She felt William's hand tighten around hers, felt him lean forward urgently. "What does that mean exactly?" William asked, his voice strained. "What are we looking at in terms of treatment and prognosis?" "The tumor is small and appears to be localized, which means it hasn't spread beyond the pancreas," Dr. Mitchell continued. "This is stage 1, possibly stage 2 at most. Given the type and stage, surgery to remove the tumor is our best option. The procedure is complex but has high success rates when the cancer is caught this early." "Surgery," Catherine repeated, the word feeling foreign in her mouth. "When?" "I'd like to schedule it within the next 3 weeks. We'll need to do some additional imaging to map exactly where the tumor is in relation to other structures. But based on what I've seen, I believe we can remove it completely. After surgery, you may need a course of medication to prevent recurrence, but many patients with this type of tumor do very well long-term." Catherine felt tears streaming down her face again, but this time, they were different. Relief, fear, hope, and terror all mixed together. "What are the survival rates?" She forced herself to ask. Dr. Mitchell met her gaze directly. "With successful surgical removal of a stage 1 neuroendocrine tumor, 5-year survival rates are above 90%. 10-year rates are also very encouraging. Catherine, I know the word cancer is terrifying, but this is truly one of the best-case scenarios for a pancreatic tumor. We caught it early, it's slow-growing, and it's surgically removable." William's head dropped forward, and Catherine could hear his shaky breath as he processed this information. 90%. 5 years. 10 years. These were numbers they could work with, hope they could cling to. "There are risks with the surgery, of course," Dr. Mitchell continued. "The pancreas is a delicate organ surrounded by vital blood vessels and structures. We'll have a specialized surgical team, and I'll be bringing in one of the best pancreatic surgeons in the country. But you need to understand that this is major surgery with a significant recovery period." They spent the next hour discussing details. The surgery would take several hours and require a hospital stay of at least a week. Recovery at home would take months. There would be dietary changes, medications, regular monitoring. Catherine's life was about to change dramatically, but she would have a life. That was what mattered. As they left the office, Catherine felt strangely disconnected from her body. She had cancer. She needed major surgery, but she had hope. Real, tangible hope based on medical evidence and statistics, not just desperate wishing. In the car, neither of them spoke for several minutes. Then suddenly Catherine started laughing. It wasn't happy laughter, but the slightly hysterical sound of someone who had been holding their breath for too long and finally released it. "I have cancer," she said, still laughing through tears. "I have actual cancer, and I'm almost relieved because it could have been so much worse." William pulled the car over. unable to drive while his own tears obscured his vision. He turned to Catherine and pulled her into his arms as much as the car allowed. "You're going to be okay," he said, his voice breaking. "You're going to have the surgery and you're going to recover and we're going to have all those years we planned for." "I'm so scared of the surgery," Catherine admitted. "What if something goes wrong? What if I don't wake up? What if there are complications?" "Then we'll deal with them," William said firmly. "But Dr. Mitchell is bringing in the best team. They're going to take excellent care of you, and I'll be there every single moment I'm allowed to be. You won't go through any of this alone." They sat there for a long time, holding each other, crying together, letting the fear and relief wash over them. Eventually, they composed themselves enough to drive home, knowing they now had to face the hardest conversation of all, telling their children. That evening, after dinner, they gathered the children in the living room. Catherine and William sat together on the sofa, and their 3 children looked at them with curious, slightly worried expressions. Children always knew when something was wrong, even when adults tried to hide it. "We need to talk to you about something important," Catherine began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "A few weeks ago I started feeling unwell, so I went to see doctors to find out what was wrong." She could see the concern growing in her children's eyes, and it broke her heart. This was a burden they shouldn't have to carry, worry they shouldn't have to feel, but lying to them or hiding the truth wasn't an option. "The doctors found out that I'm sick," she continued gently. "I have something called cancer, which means there are some cells in my body that aren't working the way they should. But the good news is that the doctors caught it early and they can fix it." Their youngest child's eyes filled with tears immediately. "Are you going to die, Mummy?" The question hit Catherine like a physical blow, but she forced herself to smile reassuringly. "No, sweetheart. I'm going to have an operation where doctors will remove the part that's sick, and then I'll get better. It will take some time and I'll need to rest a lot, but I'm going to be okay." William wrapped his arm around Catherine's shoulders, adding his own reassurance. "Mommy is very brave and very strong, and she has the best doctors taking care of her. We're all going to help her get better by being patient and kind while she recovers." The questions came then, some medical, some emotional, all heartbreaking in their innocence and concern. Catherine and William answered each one as honestly as they could while still providing comfort and hope. By the end, all 3 children were crying and the family came together in a group embrace, holding each other tightly. "I love you all so much," Catherine said, kissing each of her children's heads. "Being your mother is the greatest joy of my life. And I promise you, I'm going to fight as hard as I can to be here for you for many, many more years." That night, after the children were finally asleep, Catherine and William returned to their room exhausted but somehow lighter. The secrets were out. The truth was known. And while the path ahead was frightening, at least they could see it now. 3 weeks, Catherine said, standing at the window looking out at the dark garden. 3 weeks until the surgery that will change everything. William came to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. 3 weeks to prepare, to gather our strength, to tell the people who love you that you need their support. "I need to make arrangements," Catherine said quietly. "For the children, for my duties, for everything. If something goes wrong during the surgery, nothing will go wrong," William interrupted firmly. "But if it does," Catherine insisted, "I need to know everything is taken care of. The letters I wrote, my wishes for the children, all of it. I need you to promise me you'll follow through with everything we've discussed." "I promise," William said, holding her tighter. "But you're going to come through this surgery just fine. And in a few months, this will all be a terrible memory that made us appreciate what we have even more." Catherine turned in his arms, looking up at him. In the dim light from the bedside lamp, she could see the fear and love warring in his expression. "I couldn't do this without you," she said softly. "You're my strength, William. You always have been." "And you're mine," he replied, pressing his forehead against hers. "We're going to get through this together, Kate. You're going to have that surgery, recover beautifully, and we're going to have decades more together. I won't accept anything less." They stood there in the quiet of their room, 2 people facing the biggest challenge of their lives, with nothing but love and determination to sustain them. Outside, the world slept, unaware of their private struggle. But inside, they held each other through the night, drawing strength from their bond, preparing for the battle ahead. The surgery was scheduled. The preparations would begin and life would move forward whether they felt ready or not. But they would face it together, as they had faced everything else. And somehow that made even the most terrifying prospect bearable. Their love was strong enough to weather this storm, deep enough to anchor them through the fear, and enduring enough to carry them into whatever future awaited them on the other side.